what are the top 10 AI tech trends for 2025 and why should you care? 20% of all invested capital is now going into AI. This is more than anything since the Industrial Revolution and since the birth of capitalism. Now, capitalism came about in its modern form in the 14th century. Up until then, there were serfs that were bounded to the land and they worked essentially for food and other things for their lords. This all changed due to famine and plagues, which meant that serfs were in demand and they decided to set things up for themselves and become private enterprises. And this really is the birthplace of modern capitalism. Now, this was a massive social change, and we're going to see again another massive social change. Now, a lot of people have said to me, well, Pete, actually, the internet was a big thing and the phones were a big thing. And I agree, they are very big things and they impact our lives today. But this has been something that has occurred over the last 20 to 30 years. AI, on the other hand, I believe will happen far more quickly and affect our lives far more deeply in a much shorter time frame. So it's an extremely significant change that we are going to have. We actually say at Skillion and at Hawkeye that this is the greatest change since the Industrial Revolution. So I have top 10 technology trends here that I want to outlay. They are not social trends. We could perhaps do another video on that. These are tech trends and you'll see how they impact you just by inference from that. Now, the first tech trend is agents. What are agents? Well, agents are like automation with AI. So automation might be something simple like booking a flight for you from A to B. You can set up an automation to do that. Whereas an agent might do something far more complex. It might book a complete travel agenda for you, and there may be multiple agents that talk together. For example, one that books hotels, one that books cars, and they all talk together. And there's this sort of a circular reference between the agents to come up with a solution for a far more complex thing like a travel agenda. Second major trend I see is the development of large language models. In the first instance, they're going to become far, far bigger. I heard that training a large language model costs $100 million, and there's a huge amount of investment going into making these large language models better. Now, you may be familiar with ChatGPT as a prompt style large language model. Can be very useful, but there are multiple others. And if you like, there's an arms race going on between competition for the consumer to use these large language models and create a business model. The best may win. The other important aspect of large language models is how they're being used in coding. There's again another arms race going on to catch the coders and in some cases prompt engineers to use their language model as it is the best one for coding. So large language models are going to improve for the consumer and for the coders, and a huge amount of investment is going to go into making them bigger and better. The third major tech trend is virtual infinite memory. When you use a large language model like ChatGPT, it remembers the sentence that you typed in so it can give you a proper answer. And back in the day, they were quite short sentences, like 2,000 tokens being just a part of a word or a syllable in machine code. Now that's changing so much so that you have so much memory available that it's virtually infinite. In other words, you can be typing question after question after question, going back not just for that day, but for months or even years back in time, and it will remember every question and answer that has occurred between you and the large language model, and then it can infer things from that to help create a better answer. It is like Hawkeye, talking about the Hawkeye product, and we've been working with it over the last few years. We can ask it questions and it will understand all of that contextual information and perhaps give us a better answer. So virtual infinite memory. The fourth major trend we see is in multimodal AI. This is not only just putting a text in and getting a text answer and putting a text request in and getting an audio file or a video file, but actually stringing these all together in one continuous pattern. So maybe a text prompt would create a video, which would create a captions, which would create an audio, and so on, all integrated into one solution. The fifth major trend we see is open source AI. Now, ChatGPT says it's open, but it's actually closed. You don't have access to the code, but there are other resources out there or other language models out there which are open source. For example, Meta's Llama releases full open source, so you can see access to the code. And that is great for transparency. It means you can perhaps modify the code and use it yourself for your own purposes. We're going to see the rise of more open source AI in 2025. The sixth major trend is inference time compute. Now, when we use a large language model, it may give us a quick response. We're going to see this changing, and it's going to be doing more thinking before it gives you an answer. One of the big complaints that I have, and many other people have with these large language models like ChatGPT, is it gives you a very convincing answer, but it can be completely wrong. Introducing data inference time compute means that we'll see higher quality answers as the large language models do more thinking and checking before they reveal an answer to you. The seventh major trend we see is AI integrations. Now, we're seeing this emerge in many of the tools that we use day to day. For example, in WhatsApp, there's an AI button. In LinkedIn, there's an AI button to help you generate ads and other content. So we're going to see these buttons and these AI integrations more and more popping up in the apps that we commonly use today. The eighth major trend we see is AI on the edge. Now, AI on the edge is compute on your device. Rather than the AI compute being occurring in the cloud, like in the case of a ChatGPT, where you send the question up to the server and it does the compute there, we're going to see the AI compute being done on the edge. So that's down on your computer, down on your phone. There are already NPUs going into many phones and many computers already. So we're already seeing the hardware, and that's going to be used more and more. At Hawkeye, we do AI on the edge too. We convert video into metadata, and we do that because we need to get that data down a fairly small bandwidth pipe, being Bluetooth, and create an easy integration between the device and the cell phone or the head unit of a computer. The ninth major trend we see is RAGs, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is using a combination of large language models and a transformer to essentially allow you to use the power of large language models, but to access a limited amount of data. You might want to do that if your company data is accessible to you and your employees, but not to the world at large, or there's some large data set, for example, the plans for a large building and all the contracts for a large building. Now, we're seeing companies building these AI models and these RAGs specifically in many niches. We're going to see hundreds of thousands of new niches pop up where they're using this RAG technology to create value of the data which is already there, whether it be in company or in a contract or in a building or any other place. Now, the 10th and final tech trend we're going to talk about today is science breakthroughs using AI. One of the most famous is in protein folding, which was a mystery for many years, but using AI, they were able to figure that out, how proteins, which effectively are like long strings of carbon molecules, and how they bend and form up, was extremely complicated. They figured all that out with AI. I believe we're going to see breakthroughs in science. I can't predict where or when or how, but I believe there's going to be many coming in 2025 and the years to come. Please leave any comments you might have in the description below. We always read those comments. If you have any ideas for new videos you'd like to see, let us know. We like making new videos. Also, subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss out on any new content. I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.